Welcome back. So where we're at, sorry for the delay. I've been slowly making my way through this thing. So where we're at, I went ahead and I used part of the Crown Vic front end to add to the front for where the sway bar would go. I then brought all this down. It's fully plated in all the way around, as you can see. Okay. Also got everything has been welded in. I went ahead and I put a fish plate on the inside of both sides there. And also, just for good measure, put a fish plate on the outside. So that is where our, the new section of the frame rail that we made ties into the Crown Vic front end. That way we're fully plated in and nothing can move. So hopefully this is the last time this front end has to come out of there. On the inside of the frame rail, what we got going on is once again plated. I've not cut this off yet. I might go back in and make a different body mount type of setup and cut this off. Kind of hard to see, but back in here, painted it black already back there, but this is fully welded in up top where this arm comes down, or the frame piece that I made comes down. That's all welded in, and then it's fully boxed from here back to the part of the frame where it kind of comes in here, if you can see. So try to see if you can get in there. Yeah. So that is where we are at. Now, this side here, I just have that piece tacked in where I cut. That is for the exhaust from the factory side. Over here, I didn't tie it into the frame just yet. I got it just kind of tacked into place back over here. And then I need to go through and figure out what I'm going to do for brakes and stuff. So I decided I'm going to leave that one be for right now. So where we're at, we got all this room here to stab the LS in. So that is the next plan. I will probably start test fitting that, and then probably come in and out with that and then document that for you. So stay tuned. Thank you. So this thing has become an absolute headache. Where I'm at is I've got the engine and transmission sitting in there, and the plan was not to modify any of the firewall or the trans tunnel, as I should have plenty of room. As you can see, I've got it pretty close to the firewall, but where I'm at is I'm also really close to this cross member. Actually, the engine right now is sitting on the cross member. Trying to get it set down in there earlier, and it was hitting, so I ended up lobbing off these big hunks of aluminum where the original Ford motor bolted down through right here. You know, I didn't really want to do that, but it was in my way, and I didn't plan on using it for mounting purposes, since I do plan on setting this thing back further. The plan is not necessarily to race this car by any means, but the further this engine is back and lower it is, the better center of gravity is and the better it's going to handle. You know, that's not my main objective, is to make it handle really well, but I do want it to, you know, sit well. You know, the engine to sit back where it needs to go, and or where I wanted it. So where I'm at now is looking at potentially cutting more away of the cross member and then trying to weld it back up. The plate kind of what I took out to add some strength back to it. But the other option is to potentially pull it out forward more, since my radiator will sit somewhere across here, and you can see how much room I have from there. So I have plenty of room to come forward. The biggest problem right now is trying to make sure the transmission is going to fit. Currently, what I did is I welded a piece of 1x1 you know, square tubing at the bottom of the frame across, and so that way the transmission pan would set on it, trying to kind of level it out. The engine was kind of crooked when I was trying to put it in. And what that was allowing was that the car is set up to lay frame. So if I were to, you know, when I put that 1-inch piece across there, that means when the car is laid out, obviously I have an inch of clearance between, you know, the frame and the bottom of the pan. What I found is that wasn't enough. I needed to actually bring the pan down lower. So I had to cut that 1-inch piece off, and I welded in a piece of 1/2 inch. So now I've only got a 1/2 inch gap, which makes me a little bit more nervous. I can't really go up any higher with the transmission, because then I hit the tunnel, where if that's, you know, so that is the major concern if I try to move the engine forward. So I'm gonna have to continue to play with that. I'm gonna pull this thing back out again, probably clearance some more of this material here, as you can see. Sorry, I need to tap my screen and bring it back up. Probably gonna clearance some more of this down here. Like I said, worst case scenario, I go get some aluminum, and I know this is cast and it's gonna weld probably terrible, but if I plate, you know, at an angle, and I can clear this out. I always try to build stuff with the expectation that I'm going to be the idiot that has to work on it next. And I don't like to build stuff that is almost impossible to work on. You know, if you have to change, say, this air compressor, AC compressor, you know, if you have to pull the engine to do so, that's just dumb to me. So I try to set it up with the idea of how can I work on this later and it not be miserable. And so that's quickly also becoming the challenge. You know, sometimes you can't, you just gotta go with it. But as of right now, that's where I'm at. So I'll pull this out and we'll go from there. So what I've been messing with is I was trying to set the engine down in there and try to figure out which way I wanted to go with it. What I ran into was, being with the 4L80, I had some problems with clearance with the trans tunnel and the firewall without moving the engine closer back towards the front. Now the goal was to try to keep it low and further back where I can still work on it fairly easy, but also where keeping some of the weight back there. Lower center of gravity, further back in the chassis, car should handle better than sticking way out here at the front. So what I ended up coming up with was I had to cut a bunch of this cross member away. Originally it had these big, gnarly perches up here for the original Ford motor. Going back with an LS, I didn't really need those, and they got in my way. So what I ended up doing is I cut away, messed away, set the engine back in there, and found that, got to keep going more. And then eventually I ended up cutting down to where I'm basically flat here. And so what I did is I then bought some thicker aluminum, cut that out, and then tigged it all in and then ground it smooth again. I also went ahead and I made some engine mounts. Now, these aren't the prettiest looking things, but when I go to build something like this and I have a donor vehicle, I steal as much of the stuff off of it as I can. So I took the original engine mounts off the express van that I bought as a donor, and I kept them. And what I ended up doing is I ended up cutting them up and then welding in my own plates to underneath the frame, and then making some gussets that go over and tie into the frame. So the idea behind this is that I know, one, they bolt right up, and then two, these look like they were really easy to bolt in, and also to get the engine in and set in place, they kind of just fall in and sit in there real nice. And the other option is that if I need an engine mount or something down the road, you can go right into a hardware store, or not hardware store, but an auto parts store, order up the year of the van, bolt it right on, and I'm done. So got all those gusseted in. The other thing I was working on that was, basically what caused some of this major problems on this whole thing was this lower control arm bushing. And so I decided to make my own bushing mounts. And what I have here is a 1/4 inch plate and a bushing there. And I made my own mounts. So I'll come over here and show you that. Looks like this. All right, so fully TIG welded in there. I drilled and tapped the frame, and so I've got to the point where now I can just loosen up the bolt and then take these out, slide it down. I do have some spots underneath. I got to run some drill and tap running up, but pretty happy with that. So also the plan of this is that I can put a shim behind here if I need to actually adjust the caster. But right now I am dead center at 33 inches from stud to stud, so which is what the book calls for. So pretty happy with that as well. Also, when I was doing that, I went ahead and I set a level down here across the control arm, basically where the airbag would go. And as you can probably see there, I am dead level front to back. So overall, pretty happy. The car is sitting on some 4x4 blocks, and as you see, pretty straight across with our rack and our tie rods, which means that ideally we're set up right now for about a 3.5 inch ride height, give or take. I think the front actually could probably come down just slightly. So I think it'll look good going down the road, and ideally it'll handle well. You also see I got the frame all the way boxed in. Fish plates added on both sides. There you go. So pretty happy with it. The only thing I have left frame-wise is I didn't finish welding all this stuff in over here. Basically because I don't know if I need it yet. I'm going to get the engine and trans in, and then see if I need those pieces. Those come in there's a lot of stuff going on with the frame. I could probably cut those off and just be fine. So the key factor will be exhaust routing, and if that stuff will be in my way, it may go. So I did not finish welding that in because I might be removing it. So I'm gonna put the drivetrain in and hopefully everything goes well. All right, so here we are. Got the engine and trans in. You can see my engine mounts worked out well. Okay, got this gusseted in, so those aren't going anywhere. Got my bushings right here, looking good. Other than that, hopefully I got to find a set of headers that'll fit. But we go down here where I cut off the cross member and got it welded on. Okay, looks good there. I need to add the accessory drive to this side. But down here, as you can see, I mean, it's a little tight, but got a good 3/4 inch or more gap. You know, crank's got plenty of room, crank pulley there. I did take away some material there. That way, if I ever have to try to remove something, got as much room to work on and stuff. I always kind of assume that I'm going to be the next idiot that has to work on this. So I try not to set up stuff to where it's too hard to work on. Makes life miserable in the future. Placement wise, we're good. We got a good, I don't know, inch or so back here. Now, the tunnel itself, we got, you know, plenty of room back here between the firewall, which will make it easy to work on if we ever pull the trans separately. But overall, pretty happy with even this factory truck intake that's pretty ugly. Overall, pretty happy with it. So this is where we're at. Make good progress. Right now, the car is down. I'm just sitting, but currently I'm sitting on the oil pan. Right, so I'm gonna have to obviously get a smaller oil pan for it. As you see here, frame is just slightly off the ground. So I'll get it, I don't know, inch or more. So hopefully lower oil pan and she'll lay frame, and we're good to go. We're fully mounted drivetrain wise. So makes for next step. Hopefully either go after some steering, or I may go for the rear end. That way I can try to get it in, get it set up, get my measurement for the drive shaft and get that going, and keep plugging along as we go. So stay tuned.